7 News Good Morning Fort Sill.
Welcome to this Tuesday edition of Good Morning Fort Sill.
It is bright and early. We've got plenty of stuff for you from news impacting Fort Sill, the headlines from a couple installations in Texas.
And that's not all. We're covering major international stories in the latest in national military news.
But before we dive in, let's get a check out with the weather with meteorologist Ulysses Garcia. Ulysses, how's it looking today?
Well, guys, when it comes to what's happening today, it's actually going to be another good one across the area. It's still going to be hot out there, but luckily we're actually starting to see a little bit more influence of some drier air across the region. So at least the humidity is going to be a bit more manageable across the region. Yesterday we made our way up to 101, so we were actually 2 degrees above average. 73 for that low temperature. 99 is the norm. 72 is the low for the norm right now. And when it comes to what's happening right now, we're enjoying clear skies on our Ashley Home Store Tower Cam in Burke Burnett. So we're going to be overall with pretty much quiet conditions here. 77 degrees in Fort Sill, 79 degrees is what it feels like. 5 miles an hour for that wind, 1 degree cooler from this time yesterday to now. And looking at the next 6 hours, we're going to see those temperatures for the most part mid to upper 70s, gradually warming things up into the lower 80s by 9 a.m. We're going to push on towards the triple digits once again by this afternoon. We do have a heat advisory in effect, but this time it's even less than what we had yesterday, only for a few counties across the area. Hottest temperatures Wednesday, but a big change in the thermometer as we go into the start of the weekend. We break down those details in just a bit.
So taking a look at some of your top international military headlines. So an Israeli human rights group is accusing Israel of committing genocide against Palestinians in Gaza.
B'Tselem says it came to the conclusion after examining Israel's policy in the area about the conflict. They're joined by Physicians for Human Rights Israel, who documented what it called deliberate and systematic extermination of the health system in Gaza.
Now, U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance is also speaking out against the Israeli government's treatment of Palestinian civilians, urging them to do better.
We are very worried about the humanitarian problem in Gaza. We see a lot of starving children. We want to make sure they get food. We also want to make sure that the thugs in Hamas that are preventing them from getting food are stopping that process. So we got to get food to the neediest people. We've also got to make sure that Hamas gets the hell out of Gaza and lets the food come into that terrible situation, because I don't know if you've all seen these images. You've got some really heartbreaking cases. You've got little kids who are clearly starving to death. Israel's got to do more to let that aid in, and we've also got to wage war on Hamas so that those folks stop preventing food from coming into this territory.
The Trump administration is boycotting a UN conference to support a two-state solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. State Department officials call the move an ill-timed publicity stunt.
Now, the pathway to a diplomatic solution to the Gaza war remains unclear after U.S.-backed efforts to drive a ceasefire fell apart last week when both Israel and the U.S. withdrew their teams from the talks in Doha. French President Emmanuel Macron has announced that France would recognize a Palestinian state in September, becoming the first G7 country to do so.
The State Department called the effort an insult and says the U.S. will not participate. President Trump says the decision by France to recognize a Palestinian state will have no effect on the conflict and dismissed the move as pointless.
Well, President Trump is voicing his displeasure with Russian President Vladimir Putin after Russian forces broke a ceasefire and killed at least 10 people in attacks across Ukraine.
The State Emergency Service of Ukraine said industrial buildings were damaged in the Dnipropetrovsk and the Kharkiv regions. Russia's defense ministry said it carried out a group strike with high-precision, long-range weapons and unmanned aerial vehicles against enterprises of the Ukrainian military-industrial complex that manufactures components for missile weapons and produces ammunition and explosives.
Now, President Trump says the attacks have dramatically shortened his 50-day deadline for Russia to reach a peace deal with Ukraine.
We thought we had that settled numerous times, and then President Putin goes out and starts launching rockets into some city like Kiev and kills a lot of people in a nursing home or whatever. You have bodies lying all over the street. I'm disappointed in President Putin, very disappointed in him. So we're going to have to look, and I'm going to reduce that 50 days that I gave him to a lesser number, because I think I already know the answer what's going to happen.
Looking at news on Fort Sill, Oklahoma Representative Tom Cole was in Lawton this week to look over renovations to the Lawton Airport.
Congressman Cole is part of a delegation that is attempting to save the Fort Sill National Historic Landmark and Museum and the artillery half section. Earlier this year, the Army announced a proposed plan to shutter a number of museums across its network, including one of 3 right here at Fort Sill. In addition, the artillery half section is slated to go away as part of a broader plan to sunset most military working equip programs across the Army.
Both the museum and the NWE cutbacks are part of cost-saving measures to purportedly ensure personnel and resources are redirected toward core readiness priorities. The move has been met with widespread pushback from the Fort Sill community, something that isn't lost on Congressman Cole.
This is a really unique piece of American history, and so Senator Langford and I have headed up a delegation letter to try and get the Secretary of the Army to relook at this. I'm going to be visiting with him personally about it as well. So hopefully we can, because again, we're going to maintain that historic core of Fort Sill anyway. The additional cost to maintain the active museum is really not that much money, and it's important to the community. I think it's important, honestly, for our men and women in uniform to understand the traditions that they're building upon.
Well, if you're looking for something new to try out this fall, the Twin Oaks Bowling Center on Fort Sill is taking sign-ups for their bowling league.
Whether you're a seasoned striker or just in it for the fun, league meetings begin on August 14th, and leagues will kick off the following week. The meetings will cover the costs, schedules, and much more. If you're wanting more information, you can visit sill.army.mwr.com. And calling all escape room fans, Nye Library on Fort Sill is hosting a family edition of their escape room series.
Now, this week's theme is Camping Catastrophe. There will be 2 adventures today, one starting at 10:30, the other at 2:30. Spots are limited. You can call the library at the number on your screen to book your adventure. 364th Training Squadron's Petroleum, Oils, and Lubricants Schoolhouse at Shepherd Air Force Base hosted members of the Hero House of Wichita Falls to learn more about the school's mission.
That's right. Base officials say visits like these foster a strong sense of community, inclusion, and purpose. They said their guests from Hero House were full of enthusiasm and enjoyed seeing the work that the airmen from the 364th TRS and the 782nd TRG do every single day. The DoD's Joint Task Force to overhaul military PCS moves is making progress. Coming up, we'll have a look at some of the latest announcements from across the DoD.
Here's your first alert forecast with meteorologist Ulysses Garcia.
Welcome back, everyone, and checking out our Jackson County Memorial Hospital Tower Cam in Altus. You can see overall quiet conditions here, clear skies on this Tuesday morning. Temperatures are, for the most part, in those mid to upper 70s, 77 degrees here in Lyon, 78 in Frederick, 74 in Kroll, 76 in Altus, 73 in Elk City, 80 degrees in Anadarko, 75 in Graham. We do have that heat advisory in effect up to 110 degrees from noon to 8 p.m., but notice how the counties are much less than they were yesterday, so it's not over Lyon anymore, so pretty much over towards Stevens, Jefferson, Cotton counties in Oklahoma, and then as you make your way into Texas, we have Clay and Montague counties, so just keep that in mind, though. We could see these areas a little bit more elevated just because there's a little more humidity off towards the east compared to our western counterparts. We have high pressure in controlling the upper levels of the atmosphere a little bit more towards the west, that ridge a little bit further off towards the north, and that's going to allow for that heat to really just continue here across the area for the middle of the week. Lots of sunshine today, clear skies tonight with more of that sun on Wednesday. That cookie really begins to crumble a little bit by the time we head towards Thursday as we start seeing the influence of that frontal system bringing some clouds in the afternoon, and then really some chances for some spotty showers late in the afternoon, more so into your Thursday night. Looking at your PT forecast here, we're going to see those temperatures throughout the early morning into the 70s, warming up already to 83 by the late mornings. 102 degrees for today. Sunny and hot going into tonight. Will drop down to 75 degrees, and over the next 7 days, look at this big cool down. 103 tomorrow, 89 degrees by Friday.
The federal government is moving forward with the construction of what would be the largest immigrant detention center in the country.
Fort Bliss will be home to a 5,000-bed tent camp. On Monday, the Department of Defense announced that Acquisition Logistics LLC was awarded a contract to build and run the camp. Bloomberg News estimates that the total project will cost $1.2 billion and is expected to be completed by September of 2027. And last month, the Department of Defense stood up its Permanent Change of Station Joint Task Force to stabilize the military move process following the termination of its contract with Home Safe Alliance on June 18th.
That Joint Task Force is being led by Major General Lance Curtis, who has stated that Home Safe Alliance failed to meet required standards, which resulted in significant disruptions to the PCS move process. These disruptions led to widespread missed household goods pickups and deliveries and numerous instances of miscommunication with service members and their families.
In a recent press briefing, Major General Curtis said, in part, quote, when a service member is worried about their household goods, they are not focused on the mission. That is unacceptable. We are here to restore trust and ensure that no military family feels alone during their move.
Yeah, I have to imagine this is a pretty hot topic.
It is, yeah, definitely.
So looking at this, right, how is this Joint Task Force helping military service members and their families?
So I think it's a good first step. It's no secret that for a while the military PCS move process has not been doing very good. And just first step in the process, it's a stressful time. I think what they're looking at right now is just trying to see where they can do better, streamline the contracting process, streamline bringing in carriers, more carriers to make sure that the process is good. So for our service members and their families, please take a look at this information on your screen. So if you're having issues with PCS moves, you can update, you can find updates or assistance via the web, email, or phone. And look, I can't stress enough, the Military One Source is a really useful website, not only just on military move stuff, but quite frankly, a number of military topics across the board.
Always good to have those extra resources.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, move over MREs. There's a new food option available to all U.S. military branches.
Well, that's right. It's called the Close Combat Assault Ration, or CCAR. Utilizes emerging food processing technologies. I'm sorry that I'm reading this right now. That sounds really cool. It's supposedly to significantly reduce weight and volume while retaining vital nutrients. It's been under development since 2019.
So recent studies indicate that soldiers eating the CCAR consumed more calories and experienced smaller energy deficits compared to those using the First Strike ration in an operationally relevant field training.
So CCARs were first produced in May. There are 3 menus that include 20 new components.
All right, so what do you think, Dan? Do you think having another option will make soldiers happy?
I was sitting here thinking about this. I mean, people are always soldiers always kind of complain about rations, like depending on what it is. So there used to be this MRE. It was beef frankfurters, right? So picture hot dogs and cold meat. So it was called the 5 Fingers of Death. But the pictures they look okay, right?
Now I will say, when they're describing it, I noticed one thing they didn't mention was the taste.
I mean, it's debatable. Some people would say that all MREs or food like that taste the same. No matter what they do to it, there's generally has the same flavor. That's why they put hot sauce in there. You put hot sauce on anything, makes it better. But
just got to cover it up as much as possible.
Exactly.
Right?
We'll have to check those out, though. I'll try to get a few, and we'll bring them in and do a taste test live on air.
Oh goodness. Well, looking at today in military history, and this week marks the 67th anniversary of the inception of the National Aeronautic and Space Administration, of course, better known as NASA.
So yeah, that's kind of cool. So Russia's first successful launch of Sputnik 1 alongside superior missile technology prompted the U.S. back then to create the long-term space plan. In April of 1958, President Eisenhower asked Congress to create a civilian space agency to oversee the country's space activities. The law was passed on July 29th, so today, that year, and NASA was open for business on October 1st.
Since the inception of NASA, the agency has successfully launched astronauts into orbit, walked on the surface of the moon, and has several innovations and discoveries aboard craft such as the International Space Station. Well, it's been known as Fort Cavazos since 2023, but the Army post in Killeen, Texas has returned to the name Fort Hood. Coming up, we'll have sights, sounds, and reaction from the redesignation ceremony. Well, Fort Cavazos is officially put ahead. Fort Hood once again.
No, my screen is blank.
Sleep here.
I'm sorry. Our screen is blank. There we go. My bad. There we go. But yeah, so Fort Hood has officially been redesignated from Fort Cavazos.
Yeah, the ceremony yesterday to finalize that name change. And as Adam Schindler reports, the installation is now named after a World War I hero.
The roar of cannon fire signals that the massive military installation has a new namesake, Colonel Robert B. Hood.
Robert Hood was born in the late 19th century, coming of age during a rapid time of change in America. He was commissioned a second lieutenant of artillery on August 8, 1917.
Just over a year later, then Captain Hood found himself leading artillery gun crews on the battlefields of France during World War I.
After his initial gun crews were lost to German artillery and machine gun fire, he rapidly reorganized his unit, restoring its combat capability in short order.
He did so in 4 minutes, and those actions earned him the Distinguished Silver Cross during a battle that itself was history-making.
This was the first large offensive launched mainly by U.S. Army forces in World War I.
It was actions one combat veteran who attended the ceremony says deserved the medal he got.
He trained a lot of that. He went back, regrouped, got back, and re-engaged the enemy. You know, anyone look at the history, he'd done that, and that's what we're taught, to never retreat, to actually go take care of the enemy.
This ceremony is a piece of Colonel Hood's history he was happy to be part of.
It's a part of history. How many people in a lifetime could say they have been there for a redesignation or a renaming or the chartering of something? A lot of us have came a part of something that was already created. You're there from the conception of it.
Well, as part of the Army Transformation Initiative, it was announced earlier this year that the U.S. Army Training and Doctrine Command and Army Futures Command would merge and be headquartered out of Austin, Texas. So that's where AFC is currently located right now. Lieutenant General David Hodney was tapped to lead that new combined command called the United States Army Transformation and Training Command.
Lieutenant General Hodney, a career infantryman, will be promoted to the rank of general before assuming command. His current assignment is the Deputy Commanding General, Futures and Concepts at Army Futures Command. Well, 2 U.S. Air Force pilots successfully flew Australian Air Force aircraft during an international inter-flight training mission during Operation Talisman Sabre. And the flight marked the first time that Air Force pilots flew fifth-generation aircraft that belonged to a partnered or allied nation.
So this is actually kind of cool. So fifth-generation aircraft, F-35 Joint Strike Fighter is a fifth-gen aircraft. So the pilots were part of the operation. Say that events like these allow nations to exchange information and best practices and gives commanders additional options during future conflicts. The operation allows any pilot to be put in the cockpit of an F-35 and generate combat air power anywhere in the world. Well, Lockheed Martin is being awarded a $2.06 billion contract modification to a previously awarded contract for production of the Terminal High Altitude Area Defense Interceptors, or THAAD.
The total price of the contract jumped up from $8 billion to $10 billion. Contractors will produce THAAD components under fixed price incentive contract line item numbers. The project is expected to be done in December of 2029. Now, of note, one THAAD missile will cost roughly $12.7 million.
Well, this week, installations across the country honor the legacy of Buffalo soldiers. The segregated all-black detachments played an integral part of westward expansion, as well as several conflicts, including the Indian Wars and the Spanish-American War.
In 1992, Congress designated July 28th as National Buffalo Soldiers Day to recognize their bravery, resilience, and significant contributions to American history. Educators and historians say honoring the unit plays a big part of conserving African-American military history.
It's definitely important to say that our family histories are important to us. You know, there was, for a long period of time, African Americans didn't read nor write. And so to be able to contribute something orally and then, of course, then go to something that's written, I think that's become a huge part of how this came about. So we're actually sharing our stories now. We can research now. We can enhance the story with all the other things that are unfolded in our family stories.
The Buffalo Soldiers served within the U.S. Army for nearly 90 years through the Korean War. Of note, Buffalo Soldiers were responsible for building the original structures on Fort Sill's old post quadrangle dating back to 1869, primarily from the 9th and 10th Cavalry.
Alert forecast with meteorologist Ulysses Garcia.
And right now we are dealing with overall just clear skies on our Comanche Red River Hotel Casino Tower Cam in Duval. And looking at the temperature change from this time yesterday to now, in some spots though we're dealing with quite a noticeable drop in the thermometer, especially in Wichita Falls. 6 degrees cooler, 4 in Vernon. No change here in Line. 2 degrees warmer in Duncan, 2 degrees cooler in Altus, and also towards Elk City. Dew points right now drier off towards the west, noticeably more humid off towards the east. 68 in Duncan, 69 in Waurika, 61 in Childress, 67 in Hobart. And we do have that heat advisory in effect for Montague. We also have it for Clay. We also do have it for Stevens, Jefferson, and Cottons County, where it feels like temperatures can make their way up to 110 degrees this afternoon. So more humidity off towards the east compared to off towards the west. But still, you want to exercise caution out there. We do have high pressure in control, but looking at your future track here throughout the day, we're going to have plenty of sunshine. As we go into tonight, clear skies, more sunshine on Wednesday. Then we start seeing changes as we go into your Thursday with some clouds, and eventually that's going to lead to some rain chances during late in the afternoon going into the evening associated with our next cold front. Looking at your PT forecast here in Fort Sill, 77 degrees, and looking at the next couple of hours, we will see those temperatures making their way from the upper 70s around sunrise, eventually to the lower 80s by 9 a.m.
So it's not going to be too bad for that PT forecast.
Yeah, not too bad out there.
I mean, decent. It's going to get hot, though.
Yeah, it's going to get hot by this afternoon.
Yeah, it'll warm up quick, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for watching. Good morning, Fort Sill.
Stay with us. Good Morning Texoma is coming up next.